so far down the line.
Had that not happened, would you have worried about the future? Because at 28, you know, your whole life in front of you, I'm sure you weren't, because rugby had consumed your life.
Oh, it did, yeah. Like, you can read all about this in my autobiography, by the way, if you want. It can be purchased online.
There's one for everybody.
When's it out,
One for
Stephen? When's it
everybody
out?
in the audience.
I'm only joking. It's actually sold out, but never worry. Yeah, there wasn't too many copies printed off, so there wasn't.
They weren't all coloured in.
But yeah, like 28, it was difficult to get your head around. I think if I had have torn my cruciate, went in to see the doctor the next day, he said, "Stevie, your career's over," you'd be like, "Whoa, hold on a second." But because I had like that 2-year kind of grace period,
Yes.
I was speaking to the union. I was doing some studying outside of rugby. I was getting work experience. I was speaking, networking, like, you know, going to more events because I had more free time. I wasn't doing rugby matches or playing rugby matches every single week, so I was able to go out to functions, meet people, get opportunities. And thankfully Ulster and Ireland let me do that an awful lot. So,
Is there any
yeah.
compensation for a player in your position?
Well, insurance is a huge thing, but it's very, very difficult to insure yourself for any substantial sum of money nowadays because of concussions, because it's such a grey area. And as well, if you're going to insure yourself for any type of money, the premiums are absolutely ridiculous. But if somebody's earning £500,000 a year, i.e. a Johnny Sexton, or 600, 700, 800,000 pounds a year, they don't need insurance. It doesn't. They play for 4 or 5 years. They don't have to pay 3 or 4 or 5 grand a month on a premium.
Yes.
It's more the young lads who are earning their 30 or 40 grand a year for 4 or 5 years, have a family, get married, get a mortgage. Next thing they get involved in investment, maybe buy another house. Boom, lights out. See you later. No insurance.
So the IRF, nobody looks after you in that instance. You're literally on your own.
Well, there is an insurance, but it goes on age. So the older you get, the insurance goes down. So the likes of Paddy Wallace, who retired when he was 35 with his knee or whatever, like, you're talking, you know,
Pittance.
pittance. So it's different for every player. Circumstances are changing, but I think you know, the union now is doing as much as they can to prepare people for, as we call it in sport, the afterlife. You go to the dark side after you retire, and they are doing a much better job. But like 10 years before me, like, you know, speaking to David Humphreys, like David Humphreys, 74 caps for Ireland, you know, highest point score ever for Ulster, like never earned more than 6 figures, like, or never earned 6 figures, sorry. Goodness. And like now you have boys coming out of school earning double that. So it's ever changing. So
what's the likes of Sexton, or now, what kind of top class rugby player are nowadays?
Well, Charles Piatow was at Ulster's on £1 million at Bristol in a year, and everybody talks about footballers, about, you know, they're getting 100 grand a week. You break down £1 million into a weekly wage, it's a large sum. You know, rugby's getting there. The ever-changing URC league that we're all watching now at the minute. The Sharks are playing Ulster tomorrow night. World Cup winners, Sia Kalise, Ukanyuam, Mbonambi, the hooker. Like, all these guys are going to be earning £500,000 upwards. Really? Plus all the sponsorship money of, you know, DHL sponsor somebody. You know,
would we have many in Ulster earning up to £500,000?
We have Dwayne Vermeulen, who's been brought in. You had Marcel Coetzee, who was there, South African player. You have, like, even when I can remember when I first came on the scene, there's a guy, anybody remember Justin Harrison?
Yes.
Big second row,
yes.
Just, he was a crap rugby player, he just went around hitting people. So he did. And I can remember Stan having a conversation with him one night, and we were all, oh, this guy's on, you know, 25 caps for maybe Australia, like, World Cup winner. And we were like, oh, this guy's going to serious money, like, and he was only on, like, when I say only, he was only on like maybe 130 grand, but like, if he was playing nowadays, that would be 600 or 700.
Yes.
Like, it's frightening. Yeah. And a lot of the big clubs, like the Premiership and the Championship as well, are now privately owned. So in the Gallagher Premiership, so, you know, money's no object, and that's why the salary cap is in there now, and it's reining them in a little bit more.
Fascinating. He made money out of it, Oisín. Gerry Armstrong made money out of it. And there's you playing a game and you haven't earned a penny in the past 25 years.
That's why I'm the one. That's why I'm the only one sitting here with no jacket on. I was lucky to get a shirt.
Was it as bad as that, Oisín? Is it as bad as that, GAA?
Well, I think the thing about GAA was that you know what you're going into before you go into it. I played GAA because of geography, because I grew up in an area where there was nothing else. It was, at the time I grew up, it was GAA and trouble, and thankfully I chose GAA. But the thing about GAA is that it's an unbelievable organisation to be associated with, because people very much look after each other within the association. Like a lot of the guys who play football probably work for somebody within the club, or you know, there's a lot of, like, the guys talking about networking. I mean, you start networking in GAA at about 15. Do you know what I mean? And by the time you're ready to leave school and stuff, you know, you probably are lined up in some sort of job or that. But that's just something that you have to accept. I think GAA players are now looked after better than they ever have been as far as conditions. And when you're not used to being paid, when you don't feel as if the players who've gone before you haven't been paid, and it's an amateur ethos. It's and that's the way. I don't know. That's the way the GAA mind works. But there's so many other things that you get out of the GAA.
Well, could it go professional?
See, the problem with the GAA and professionalism is that, and I think we've seen some of the same problems in rugby, is that where does that stop? You know what I mean? Where do you stop paying players? Like, there's clubs in Ireland who would argue that they put in as much effort as some of our inter-county teams. Yes. Not the top ones, but yes, some of the lower ranked ones. So where do you stop? Do you pay them as well? And I don't think the infrastructure's there for it. Like, I have a number of American friends who come over and watch GAA. They watch 82,500 people. They probably end up coming over for an All-Ireland semi-final and final. So they see the big 82,500 crowd, and they can't believe that these guys running about in the pitch are not looked after. It used to be a lot worse, Gerry. I remember being in Croke Park one day, and eventually there was a players' lounge. So you go into the players' lounge, and somebody handed you a ticket
for dinner,
for a drink,
for
a drink,
Really?
and you go up and you get one drink, and then it's like, get out. And I remember, you know, there was a huge kick up around it, and then things started to get better. So I'd say if you ask players nowadays how they were treated, I'd say they feel they were treated pretty well. And I think there's been a lot of work that has gone into that. But like as recently as 2 weeks ago, the GPA and the GAA were fighting over travelling expenses for an extra night's training for lads. Like, and when you see the thing that I've noticed that has changed most in the GAA is the conditioning of players from 18 and 19 years of age. The conditioning it's phenomenal. There's no point in saying any different. Yeah. It is absolutely phenomenal, the conditioning that these guys are in, especially the guys playing at the top level, and the work that's going in behind the scenes and all that to make that happen is huge. And these guys are working full-time jobs as well. And I think that's why the longevity of the GAA player has reduced significantly. So I played inter-county GAA for 16 years. Mm-hmm. Very few do that anymore.
Nobody's going to do that again?
No, I think probably it averages out at 8 or 9 years now. You know, guys are retiring from inter-county football a lot quicker, because like it's so debilitating if you have a young family or anything like that. So I think that's the thing. But I think GAA players in general are looked after pretty well now.
Gerry, you played very successfully for over 20 years, so it was almost inevitable that your end was going to come at some stage. Was it easier for you to walk away from the game?
Not really, no. You miss the game. And that's the part that kills you, that you can't play it again. or you can't play it the way you used to play it, and
Yeah.
that's just, you have to accept that over a period of time. But I have similarities to Oisín because I didn't play soccer till I was 17.
That's right, you're a GAA.
I
man.
played Gaelic and hurling. That's all I played. I won an All-Ireland hurling medal when I was 17 at Croke Park. Beat Tipperary in the final, and then the following week I went back as captain of Antrim vocational schools team.
You're an Antrim man with an All-Ireland medal.
Yeah,
That's a rarity, eh?
it is. It is. And I was there as captain the following week of the football, and we got beaten by Mayo by a point, and we should have won the match. But again at Croke Park. But that was the sort of thing. But then I got suspended for punching a guy in a match, and as the suspension was like 4 to 6 weeks, and because of that I started playing soccer, and I'd love to have a go at rugby as well, I have to say.
Were you not at a time when there was a ban on Gaelic?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you were playing both at that time?
No, I wasn't. I started to play both. Now, the interesting one was the Ulster final. We played Tyrone, and we beat Tyrone. I think I scored something like a goal and 5 points in the final of the Ulster final, and Mickey Hart was playing for Tyrone at the time.
All right.
And then the semi-final was about 2 weeks later, and I was playing soccer for Bangor. I just started playing soccer for Bangor. We went on tour, and I wasn't available for the semi-final. So when I came back, I wasn't picked for the final either, and Antrim went on and won that under 21. So and you know, it's how it works. But my last game as an Antrim player was against Kerry in the semi-final of the under 21 the following year, and that was in Tralee against Paddy O'Shea, Pat Spillane, and all that gang that went on and won 5 or 6 All-Irelands. So
Did you know this, Oisín? You're sitting in the
Yeah,
presence
no,
of it.
I actually, myself
we've
and
had,
Gerry,
had a couple of conversations
we've-
before
we've-
about this.
we've had a few rodeos before, and he's talked to me about that. Something I actually didn't know.
I'm not sure how many people know this. I'm going to check.
It's in the book,
I'm
Jack.
going to fact check. I'm going to fact check this because the only Antrim person with an All-Ireland medal is an Irish dancer, as far as I know.
There's a few, because there's a lot of the McGurdy's. You know, Sean McGurdy, his sons play for St Galls, and he played for St Galls. He won an All-Ireland hurling medal as well. There's Tommy Armstrong, another one who played soccer as well.
Right.
So there's 3 or 4 names in there that played and won All-Ireland hurling
Okay,
medals.
from then on, you started to play soccer at the time. Where did you go to first?
Spurs. I was 3 years
Well,
at
you were
Bangor.
Bangor,
I was
yep.
at Bangor. My first game for Bangor was semi-final of the Stevenson's Cup. I came on as a sub with 10 minutes to go. Got sent off 5 minutes from the end. Scored
For hitting a fella.
Scored a goal and knocked the centre half out.
Seems
Yeah,
to be a
but
recurring thing.
There's a bit of a thing going on here.
There was. That's a very. Carl Frampton said to me, "You should have been a boxer, big man." So that's how it started. But then Bertie Neal was the manager at Bangor, and he took me under his wing. And I didn't even know the offside rules or anything. I had to learn all of that. And it took me 2 or 3 years at Bangor to establish myself. And then I thought I was signing for Arsenal, and at the last minute, Spurs came in and made an offer, and Bangor accepted it, and I signed for them in the Dunodria, and I went and signed on a Sunday morning. I was supposed to play for Antrim against Cavan that afternoon, and I didn't make the game.
What was the fee, the transfer
The fee was around 30,000 at the time, but it was initially 7,500 was the deposit, and then it was all conditions. If you played an international match for your country, then there was another 7.5, and then 10 international matches, and then 20 games for Spurs was another 7.5. So there was all increments in the contract, and within about a year and a half, that had the whole lot.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Let's get down to a few highlights from each of you. Stevie, we'll start with you. Highlights of the career that you've had.
Oh, geez. I've been to a couple of Rugby World Cups, 2007, 2011. 2007 wasn't so good for me personally and for Ireland. I was only a young cub, but I didn't get playing in
You
that.
didn't get playing yet.
Didn't get playing at all. But I actually came back a hero from that World Cup because I didn't play. because Ireland were so bad. 2011, completely different story. Thoroughly enjoyed myself out there. Obviously really disappointed that we didn't turn up in that quarter-final against Wales. I suppose on paper we were the better team, absolutely the better team, but the big game players, myself included, didn't turn up for whatever reason. I can't put your finger on it, but like touring South Africa with the British and Irish Lions in 2009 was without a shadow of a doubt the biggest highlight of my career. It was so much fun. Like, I think nowadays, I think I enjoy professional rugby at the right time. Like I would chat to Tommy Bowe about this, a few other lads, Bestie. Nowadays, they're programmed robots. They go to training, they go home, they recover, they've got their meal plans. They don't even cook their own meals because it's given to them on the way out the door from training. Like, you know, And then it's just everything is so regimented. Where in my day, well, when I say my day, it was still professional, and you know, you were still fit as a flea. But at the same time, after a game, you could go out and have a few beers, and there wasn't somebody standing there with a camera phone videoing you. They'd go out on social media the next day. And like in the Lions tour 2009, Ian McGeechan was the head coach, and you went out, had a few beers, got to know somebody. When you get to know somebody, you can trust them more. There was a real, just a really good feeling about that tour. And we come up short against the world champions in South Africa, 2-1 in that test series. But I had an absolute ball and met friends for life, and still keep in touch with them today. Like Andy Powell, the madman from Wales.
Yes.
He sent me a text the other day, catching up. I'm going to see him in the autumn. Go over to Wales and see him. And like, I didn't even know him before I stepped on the flight to go to the Lions. So it's a special thing.
Is it the pinnacle of a rugby player's career?
For me, yes.
Yeah.
Other people, I think winning a Rugby World Cup would be the pinnacle for anybody. But yeah, I think from a personal point of view, like nobody can ever take that away from you. Like it's there's not too many people, especially Ulstermen, get to represent the British and Irish Lions. And at that time, Tommy Woe was playing for the Ospreys, so I was the only man from Ulster that actually got on that tour. And Bestie was sort of on standby, but he never actually got called out. So just that tour in general, the way it fell for me was pretty good.
What number were you?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Do you not get a number if you play for the Lions?
It's funny, like, so
You don't remember your own
no,
number?
No, I remember. So my first international cap, I wore number 7. My first cap for Ulster was wearing number 8. And my first cap for the Lions was wearing number 6. And my number for the Lions is 768.
Oh.
So it's pretty cool. Like.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Didn't know that one.
I can remember you come back from injury. You were playing Scarlet. You were 17 months out, and you come back from an injury.
Yeah.
And you were put on as a sub.
Yeah.
And the shout went up, "Chopper."
Yeah.
What was that about?
So Chopper was a box kick. Ruan Pinar was playing. He's still playing these days. So he's playing for the Cheetahs in South Africa at the minute. And playing well too. And he put a box kick up, and I just chased it down, and the guy caught it, and I just the name of my book's Man and Ball. So
You took both that night
I took yeah.
and
Man
put him
ball.
back 20 yards.
Took him back 20 yards. But when I was running, Gerry, my ankle wasn't in good shape.
Oh, really?
I remember warming up, going, "Oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Like, why am I going to go out here? Why am I going to go out?" And I get anybody who's experienced neuromas in your feet, like it's usually more female suffer from wearing stilettos, where the nerve root gets thickened up in your feet. Oh my goodness, the pain was just excruciating. It was sore than the ankle, so I couldn't wait to get off the pitch. But I went, you know what? I'll go out, give her one last lash, and yeah, thankfully I came through that game. I knocked myself out in the next game, trying to do something silly again. And then my last ever game was against Saracens in the quarter-final. If anybody can remember that, Jared Payne got red carded for that incident only a couple of minutes in. So that was my last game for Ulster. Then my last game for Ireland was against England away, and we got absolutely pumped by 30 points over in Twickenham. So I wish I was able to sign off my career on a real positive. Like, Rory Best, I know I slag him all the time. Like, the whole year that he was playing in his last year, he was, walking around the stadiums. Like he
Every match.
2 kids in each arm. Like, they're like, "Oh, well, it's goodbye, Rory, goodbye." And then next week, it's the same again. See you later. And fair play to him, but unfortunately, that didn't happen for me, Gerry.
Is it a regret? Do you think about it? You would like it obviously to be different, but
yeah,
it is what it is, or it was what it was.
Do you know what? See, as time goes on, like, my body I'm really struggling, like from day to day. And I played professional rugby. Well, you could maybe say under Irish 18s, 19s, 21s was still pretty physical. Your body obviously hasn't matured, picking up knocks all the time. But I was very durable for that. I played every minute of every game for Dungannon, for Irish 18s, 19s, 21s, the whole way through, and then started to pick up niggles. But like my wrists now give me real bad trouble. I had 10 operations in my career. Feet still give me real bad. Wearing brogues give me real trouble. My back at the minute, just had a scan there a couple of weeks ago of 2 bulging discs in my back that'll give me nerve pain. Like, and I just want to go out and play a bit of golf and relax and enjoy yourself. But and then I go, was it all worth it? Was it all worth it?
What's the answer to that question?
A couple of years ago, Gerry, it was absolutely yes. But as time goes on, it's starting to change. Like it is. And then I pick up my daughter out of the cot in the morning, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Wow,
My back's away.
wow.
You know, so
Wow.
what am I going to be like when I get to your age? Sorry, Gerry.
Moving on. Is the game too physical nowadays? Because there's a lot of, we talk about concussion, dementia,
Yeah.
and some of the hits now are just, you can hear them through the television.
Yeah, but the thing is now, but players are getting managed. So if you got concussed 5-10 years ago, it was a magic sponge. Go on
Yes,
ahead there,
yes.
you're okay. How you feeling? All right. You know, you're on the team sheet the next
Yeah.
week. Now there's all the different protocols in place.
What happens when they go in for concussion?
It's weird. Like, so I only had 1 concussion. That was my penultimate game, as I said there, against Edinburgh away, I think it was. I just caught it in the chin. Wasn't knocked out. Just like seeing the stars, and I remember getting in at half time, and the head coach, who was the head coach, can't remember, they said, Stevie, you've been on the pitch 40 minutes and you haven't carried the ball once. He says, the reason you're in this team is to carry the ball. And I was like usually I carry the ball 15 to 20 times in a game.
Yes.
I was just like, jogging around behind everybody. Like, so I didn't want the ball, but I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was sort of just still in a daze. So Michael Webb, who's the doctor, turned around and said, Stevie, how you feeling? I was like, oh, yeah, banged the head. I don't know what's wrong. I just don't feel right. And he said, oh, can you remember who we played last week? And like, last week was my return match against the Scarlets. Been out for 17 months, and I couldn't remember.
Wow.
I couldn't remember like who I played it. And I started laughing. I goes, oh, you are joking me. I was like, how can I not remember this? He said, that's concussion. This is what happens. He said, straight off the pitch. And
So what do they do for you once they bring
so
you
I
in?
was back to the hotel, and then I was on their laptop, and like it was the alphabet backwards. You had to remember 2 or 3 letters, and then maybe goes 4, 5, 6, 7, and you have to do that. Different colours, different movement patterns on a laptop, and then you repeat the same process 24 hours later. Any improvements, or
Wow.
backward steps, and then obviously if you get 2 concussions pretty close together, then there's a 6-week period now, we're cooling off period, and then if it's 3, I think it's up to 6 months now.
Goodness.
So if you think
Wow.
as well, if somebody, you go down to quarter pay after 6 months, like if you pick up 3 or 4 concussions in a season, financially it can have an impact as well. And if you're that guy earning 30 or 40 grand a year who
Yeah,
has a mortgage
you're
and a wife, and
yeah.
kids, it can be pretty tough.
But there's no way of making the game any safer without diluting the whole essence of it.
Well, the tackle situation has improved a lot, I think. Everybody gives off about red cards, the amount of red cards in the game. Nobody more than me, because you don't want to see a team going down to 14 men and the game spoiled. But the only way you're going to get lads to tackle lower is to give red cards and to give yellow
Yeah,
cards.
yeah.
I think they're doing a pretty good job of that overall, to lower the tackle height. But then you lower the tackle height and there's more knee injuries and there's more ankle injuries, and there's even more concussions, because if you tackle somebody around the waist and you catch the hip and the jaw, like it's very, very similar. But we all know how brain injuries are obviously a lot more serious than an ankle or knee. So it's just about trying to balance it out a wee bit more and try and make it as safe as possible.
Gerry, I suspect the highlight of your career. I wonder what that would be.
Well, I played in 2 World Cups, not 1.
I just want to talk about one particular night. Almost 40 years ago next month, isn't
It
it?
is 40 years on the 25th of June.
Wow.
That was just sensational. You couldn't even write the script for that. I mean, to qualify was our goal, and but I started training extra. I was training hard at Watford, but then in the evening I was doing extra runs and doing extra training to get myself really prepared. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we didn't miss the boat. We turned up, and Billy Bingham was very important because he made a couple of subtle changes, like introducing a 17-year-old called Norman Whiteside, who nobody had seen before, and still is the youngest player ever to play in a World Cup. and he was brilliant. And then he stuck me in and, as a right-sided midfield player to give a bit of cover for Jimmy Nicholl behind me, and then to get forward. And I got so much space. I was allowed so much room, and I was a good athlete, so I could get up and down the pitch easy. And it was a sensational World Cup. And,
Is it still fresh in your mind? Can you still?
It is. I get Pat Jennings phone me up and ask me what the name of the hotel was we were staying in, things like that. But yeah, I remember it very clearly. But I never watched any of the videos for about 7 or 8 years after the World Cup. And then there was one evening, I had a spare couple of hours and I put on a couple of tapes. And it's not exactly the same, because when you're on pitch level, you see a different angle. And it's funny how it works out. But it was sensational. It was just the greatest moment ever to play in the World Cup and to score in the World Cup and to get to the quarterfinals. And we still talk about if Martin O'Neill's goal against France had stood, we could have won that match, and went on through to play Germany in the semi-final. Yeah. And they're all saying, you lost to Germany. We played Germany in October at Windsor Park, 3 months later, beat them 1-0. And I said that was because it was at Windsor. 6 months later, it was my 50th cap. We played them in Hamburg, beat them again 1-0. No team's ever done that. Never beaten Germany,
How much did that goal change your life?
Massively. I wouldn't have went to Spain, I think, as a result of that, And then I came back, and Watford we'd just got promoted into top flight football for the first time. And the opening game of the season in the August was against Everton. And I scored the first goal for Watford in top flight football, which was, again, through that 82 World Cup.
How many goals did you score in that World Cup campaign?
I scored three against one against France, one against Spain, and one against Honduras. So I finished, I think I was the 4th top goal scorer. Zico scored more than me, and so did, what was his name? The little Italian centre forward. He was the top goal scorer, and the other one was, I think it was either Falcao or Rummenigge, somebody like that. They were the top goal scorers, and then myself. When
you went to Real Mallorca, did you get any abuse from the Spanish crowd because of the goal that you scored?
I got some stick when I went to Valencia. The goal scorer was Paulo Rossi. He scored the goals. He was the top goal scorer. Yeah, we went to play. I didn't speak that much Spanish in the first 2, 3, 4 months that I was there. I was learning all the time, and I remember we pulled up the coach in Valencia, and that was the first time I'd been back since the World Cup. And we were getting ready, getting your stuff together and getting your bag, and I was getting off the coach and never noticed that all the players were hanging back and letting me get off first. And as I got off, there was hundreds of Spanish outside. They hit me with everything. They had eggs, apples, oranges, you name it. They did everything. And I looked back, and the players were all killing themselves laughing as you're getting off the coach and you run the gauntlet. But here, I had the last laugh because we were losing 2-1. And I picked the ball up in my own half and went past a couple of people and hit one from 25 yards into the far corner of the net. And that was the equalising goal. And I turned to the fans who had been giving me all the stick and, give them that, And of course, I had to get an escort off the pitch at the end because they were throwing. It wasn't apples they were throwing at the end, I'll tell you. So they had to come out with the shields to protect me getting into the tunnel.
How much did you enjoy your life in Spain?
Loved it.
Was it good?
A different type of football. I was brought in as a British style centre forward because I was rough and ready, and I put it about. I was a good target man, and they didn't have that style of players in Spain. They had technical players, who could good touches on the ball. But if you went in to tackle them, they would jump out of the way. They would be petrified to get hurt, Whereas I go straight in and fall on. And the other thing was my first goal for Real Mallorca in Spanish La Liga was against Barcelona, and Diego Maradona was playing in the game, and he was something else.
Maradona was...
Yeah, he played, and I played against Maradona 4 times. Went out drinking with him twice as well. As you do. It was great crack, I have to say. He was something else.
Maradona was great crack.
He was. But I was learning Spanish, and as my Spanish got better, you started to understand, a lot of stuff. And again, you're going to love this one, Oisín. My first game at home for Real Mallorca was against Zaragoza. And we ended up drawing the match 1-1. And I had a diving header near the end, and the keeper made a really good save. And I was a bit pissed off. I thought I should have scored myself. And I walked in, and I didn't speak any Spanish at all. And I was in a hotel, staying in a hotel in Compostela with an Argentinian player called Verón, and Juan Carlos Verón. And he didn't speak English. I didn't speak Spanish. None of the players spoke English, and it was really frustrating. And I was getting more frustrated by the minute. And after the game, and there was always wee comments made in the dressing room, and our goalkeeper was called Tirapu, Mariano Tirapu. And he always made these wee stories and jokes, and at the end of it I could hear Gerry. And they all laughed. And I thought, he's taking the piss out of me, this guy. And it went on for a few weeks, but he didn't know who he was taking the piss out of. So in the shower, we come into the shower after the game 1-1, and I wasn't best pleased. Veron was standing beside me. The showers were coming out of the ceiling. And I remember standing in the shower, and Tirapu starts talking in Spanish, and then at the end of it, Gerry, and they all start laughing. I said, hey, bang, hit him right hook.
Really?
On the shower, down he
Wouldn't
went.
be like you.
And all the players run out, bar Veron was the only one stayed, and that's when I learned my first phrase. And he said, muy bien, Gerry, muy bien, which means well done, Gerry, very good. So that was when he stopped taking the piss out. He never took the piss again. And the manager came in and gave me a bit of a rollicking, and I was even more determined to learn Spanish than I had to, you know.
And how good at Spanish did you become?
I was fluent in Spanish, I could buy, you know, so I was happy enough. I did interviews about 6 months after I was there, and it was a great insight, you know. And I got, as a result of being in Spain, I ended up playing, working for Sky for 22, 23 years doing La Liga, which was a lot of fun. I loved that.
What surprises me though, Gerry, about your career is you played with Spurs, with West Brom, with Brighton, but then you dropped down to like non-league clubs like Crawley and places like that.
I was player coach.
But I'm surprised you didn't leave it when you were at the very top.
Well, the very top for me, well, my last international match was in the World Cup in '86, which was Pat Jennings' birthday, his last game, and that was against Brazil. So it was a great way to finish your international career. But I wanted to keep playing as long as I could, and I actually played non-league football till I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
You know, but it's player coach, and it's the desire and passion to be able to play and to train. And I was very fortunate. I didn't get, like Stephen, any really serious injuries. I broke my ankle and my leg and things like that, but the bone's knit. I was lucky it wasn't ligaments. If it had been a cruciate, that's you're finished. Yeah. Or an Achilles, you're in trouble. But touch wood, I was lucky I didn't. I only broke bones. So, and part of the structure is if you want to continue in football, you become a coach. And you start at the lower side of that. Okay. So I became a player coach at Crawley Town. Right. Then I went to Worthing Town, which was great fun. I really enjoyed that as player manager. And I recruited three of my ex-teammates from Tottenham, Mark Falco and Gary Brooks, you know, and Tony Galvin. So I recruited those players, and then I started building a team. And I took Worthing from the second division to the first division, from the first division to the Premier Division, and then into the Conference League. And the chairman decided he didn't want to go to the Conference League because it was going to cost too much money, and I became assistant manager of Northern Ireland as a result of that with Brian Hamilton. Yeah,
so they must have been exciting years, were they? It
was brilliant. And then when you're working with the national team again, I mean, playing for your country, representing your country is something special. My debut was with George Best against West Germany in Cologne. And when Danny Blanchflower told me the night before I was going to play up front with George, who was a boyhood hero of mine, it's like all your dreams have come true. Yeah. You know, playing for your country and playing with George Best, it doesn't get better than that.
And having a drink with Maradona?
Having a drink. Well, listen, I was not a drinker. I used to drink shandy until I was about 22, 23. And I went into the Oak Hotel where we were playing England and meeting up for training. And the three senior players in the squad then were Alan Hunter, George Best and Pat Jennings. And Pat became my roommate. And I remember coming into the bar and meeting George for the first time, and I was obviously a wee bit taken back. And George says, "Here, son, go and get a drink for us." And you'll understand how many years ago when he gave me a $5, and he said, "What do you want, Pat?" And Pat said, "I'll have a vodka and tonic." And he said, "What about you, Alan?" And Alan said, "I'll have a vodka and tonic." And he says, "I'll have one as well." And I said, 3 vodka and tonics. And he went, "No, 4. I said, 4. He said, "You're having one too." And I said, "I don't drink spirits." And that was the first time I had to drink a spirit. And I've hated vodka ever since.
He's had a go at management. You had a go at management too, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I sort of started dipping my toe in even before I stopped playing. I was managing a college team in Dundalk, and I loved it because it's probably not just college football is guys going to college enjoying themselves, and football is just a small part of what their overall thing is. And I enjoyed that because there was no pressure in it.
Yeah.
Then I went and managed my club and didn't really enjoy it. we were successful, but I didn't really enjoy it. It was just felt too claustrophobic. You know, I played with most of the guys I was managing.
Yeah.
And the expectations were quite high.
Yeah, and a profit in his own town, of course, is
Yeah,
never
the
recognised.
expectations were quite high, so I moved on and actually managed a team in Meath for 2 years, and I absolutely loved it, but I just couldn't hack to travel anymore, and I've been within a scheme which is literally 10 or 15 minutes away from me in Monaghan. Their senior team in Monaghan, so we've been in the last 2 semi-finals. Good club, good prospects, good youth, and
Would you be interested?
10 minutes away from the house.
Would you be interested in stepping up into a big county?
I was with the Armagh 20s this year, so probably see how that goes for a couple of years, and then maybe do something after that. But it's a huge commitment, and like my kids are still quite young. They're 9,
Yeah.
3. My boys play soccer and Gaelic, and the wee one dances. So by the time we finish all those taxi runs, I can't leave everything or indoors. So by the time you're finishing up, you're finished with all that taxiing. It's tough. It's very set. I find that going into something like that would be hugely selfish. So I'll probably end up doing it. Someday I think, Gerry, I'll probably feel as if there's an itch I need to scratch. And
Yes, and
I'll
that might be it.
Like,
Might be it. Talk to me about Crossmaglen Rangers. Like, what a record these guys have. I wrote it down: 16 county championships, 10 Ulster club titles, and 6 All Irelands.
Yeah.
Like Kilcoo won the other last year, and you would have thought the world had opened up for them. You guys have won this 6 times.
Yeah, no, I suppose we were probably similar to where Kilcoo are now, in that I would have felt if we won one All Ireland, that'd be great.
Yeah.
You know, and we won one, and actually all it did was sort of stoke the fire, and it sort of gave us a bit of belief that we maybe chance another one, and then we just couldn't stop winning. Then
What was the secret behind it? What?
it's ridiculous. Somebody asked me this exact same question today in a different context altogether, but we hated everybody. and that was one of the things we used as motivation. There was a guy called Ollie McConville, unfortunately no longer with us, but he was part of Joe Kernan's, he was one of the selectors of Joe Kernan, and I remember him standing up one night at a meeting, and he says, "I want us to become the most hated team in Ireland." I thought, that's something to aspire to. I didn't really get
What he was.
I didn't really get it. And I started to get it then. Well, because when we were a very popular team, because we never won anything. And then all of a sudden we started to win things, and people don't really like it when you continue to win things. But I remember we were at a goal watch tournament in a place called Ballincollig in County Cork, and the goal watch tournament was a disguise for us going away on the rip for the weekend. Basically, we were away on a Friday, and we played Friday night, Saturday, and the final of the goal watch tournament was Sunday, and we won it. There was 8 other teams in it, but it was the Sunday we won it was St Patrick's Day. So everybody come into the clubhouse, and on the TVs round the walls were the All Ireland Club Final, which was the traditional home for the All Ireland Club Final, St Patrick's Day, and we were all watching it. And I seen Ollie McConville, that guy, he was heading up towards the stage, and I seen him plugging in a microphone. It's not going to be good. So all of the teams were huddled in different corners and different sections of this large hall. And he got the microphone and he shouted down, "Hey lads," and we went, "Ollie," he says, "see, next year we're going to be up there," and he pointed at the TV, and we all went, "Oh," because we couldn't literally win a championship match at that stage, never mind a championship.
Goodness.
And for the thoughts of us being up there the following year, I mean, if you looked at us, you would think it's Ragball United. And we turned it around. 12 months we turned it around. We were there the following year and we won it. And after that it snowballed. And not only did we win it, like we won it by We won by 14 points or something. I think we won the first All Ireland with 14 points, and from that we just took it and we run with it. And you guys and these guys will know that when you get on a run and you go onto the pitch and you feel, I can't see how we're going to be beat.
Yeah.
Then it's very, very powerful thing, and when everybody's buying into it, and look, we were enjoying it. There was a huge amount of enjoyment. There wasn't the same pressure on lads as there would be now, and the social media end of things, the focus wasn't just as much, or you weren't under the microscope as much, and we enjoyed it. We played hard, we partied hard, when we come back to do pre-season in January, we trained like dogs. Simple as that. I remember one night we had Sean Boylan from County Meath, who was down taking us for a training session. I remember two boys colliding in the middle of the field, and I remember Sean Boylan, who was about, would he be 5 foot? Five foot six?
Yeah.
And he dragged one guy off and put him over on this side, and he dragged the other guy off, and he said, "Let's go. You're no good to us now." And that was like that's the way we trained from that point on. You know, we trained really, really hard, and the conditions we were training in January and February, just like we were training like most guys train now on 4G pitches or sand-based pitches, but we were training in a bog.
Put your pundit's hat on. What is wrong with down football?
I did when I was doing when we were going through COVID and we were going through the lockdowns. I did a series of interviews with people for the Sunday Life, and one of the people I interviewed was Donald O'Hare from Bourne, who's a cousin of mine who played for Down for 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah.
And we started to look. The two of us started to look at the turnover of players in Down, and we were at 100, and we were still counting. And I don't care who you are, you're Dublin, you're Kerry, you can't have that turnover of players in the 6 or 7 years and expect to do well. So I don't think it's just as simple as that. I think there's problems from the top down and from the bottom up, but I do think that there has to be, you have to want to play for your county. I mean, Eugene Brannigan's
Well, the Cuckoo boys don't want to play for their county.
Well, Eugene Brannigan's comments were interesting, and then Barry O'Hagan's comments were interesting because Eugene Brannigan said, "I'm not going to go in there if there's not a winning mentality."
Yes.
And that we were exactly where Cuckoo were, but we brought the winning mentality in. And if you ask any of the lads that we played with, they will say we brought a winning mentality in because Armagh teams had always gone to Croke Park and failed. We brought a winning mentality in, and we were able to instill that in other players. I don't know why the Cuckoo lads won't go in. I'd like to think that they will wake up someday and think that it's worth the while to go in there and try and embrace it and try and get all the rest of the best players. The biggest secret in the GAA is getting the best players in your county into the change room. Down are unable to do that, and you're probably looking at a lot of the Down lads at the minute. You're talking second string.
Of course, of course.
And the other thing is that, like, even since they were beat by Monaghan in the championship, you look at Keelan Mooney has gone from that setup, like, and he would be seen as one of your leaders. So it's very difficult with the turnover of players, and then you have to work on the mentality then from there.
Yeah, you talked about Armagh bringing the mentality eventually. You brought it in 1999 to Croke Park. Because I was there. No, it was the Ulster final, sorry. It was the Ulster final of 1989.
Yeah.
And you single-handedly beat Down that day. What did you score, 2-7?
I got 2-7 that day, and I remember going home, and I suppose my father, Lord mercy on him, he was my biggest critic. And I walked through the door, and my mum went, "Yes," and she put her arms around me, and everybody was clapping me in the back, and all that sort of thing. And my dad was sitting in the corner. Now, in fairness, he hadn't been that well at the time, but he was sitting in the corner, and he said, "Come here." And I said, "What?" He says, "Why did you not pick that ball up at the end and get 3-7? I tried to chip Mickey McVeigh from about 30 yards. Mickey McVeigh is about 6'20". So it was a ridiculous thing to try and do. But my father said to me, if you had to lift that ball, stick it in the net, 3-7 would never be equal. So that was the sort of ground.
Well, is 2-7 still a record?
2-7 is a record, and if anybody knows Paul Finlay, who plays with Monaghan, it was his dad, Kieran Finlay. Unfortunately, not around anymore either, but he had a record in the Ulster final, and he scored 12 points in 70 whatever.
Right.
Or 79.
But all in points.
All in points.
That's fascinating. Gerry, the greatest players you've ever played with?
George Best was a bit
Was
greatest
he?
player I played
Was
with,
he?
yeah, and against certainly Maradona. But I played against Platini. I played with Glenn Hoddle. Glenn Hoddle was something special.
How are you supposed to compete with that?
I know. He's just
Maradona, Platini, George Best.
No, I was fortunate. I mean, in my career, there were some fantastic players. I was on to John Barnes yesterday, and Barnes, he was something else. I watched him as a 15, 16-year-old signing for Watford, and he was a wee skinny black boy, about 8 stone, wringing wet, and then you watch him develop and become an athlete. And he was a great cricketer, and he was a great cross-country runner, and he was good with his left foot, and he was good with his right foot.
And he could sing.
He could sing, he'd do it all. He can rap as well. You know, he was different class, and he's a top man. He got me 2 tickets for the game on Sunday, Liverpool against Wolves. My sister and brother-in-law are big Liverpool fans, and Barnes, he's got me a couple of tickets for this week.
Are you still in contact with many of the guys?
All of them.
All
yeah.
of them?
Yeah, we have a group, you know, the Watford ex-players, and Luther Blissett organises it, and we're all going to meet up in July at Elton John's farewell tour, which is at Vicarage Road.
Elton John, write that down too then. let's keep this going for another wee while. Are you doing anything special for the 40th anniversary?
We're trying to have a dinner on the 25th of June, which is the 40th anniversary, and I've spoken to the players, and the majority of them are all available and ready to come over for it, including Pat Jennings and Sammy McElroy and Jimmy Nicholl and John McClelland. All the boys are looking to come over at the Europa. We're trying to plan that. I was with the Irish FA today, and we're still trying to just get it rubber stamped. So hopefully it'll all come together in the next week or so.
Excellent. Stevie, greatest players you've played with?
Played with?
Yeah, let's say with first of all.
It changes a lot. So it does. So like somebody asked me, who's the best player you ever played with? I'm like, okay, a couple of years ago it was Brian O'Driscoll, but then you kind of think about it more and more, and then it changes to Paul O'Connell, and then you think about it more and more. Like I played with Johnny Sexton from the age of 17. So like Johnny Sexton was on the bench, and a young fella called Gareth Steenson, who's from Armagh, went over to the Exeter Chiefs, won the double European Cup and the Gallagher Premiership with them. Only just retired last year. And like he was starting ahead of Sexton, but like Sexton was, even at 17 years of age, 18 years of age, it killed him. Like he was on the pitch for hours after training, practicing his kicking, where Steno was in having a cup of coffee, you know, just sitting back. Just the determination in that man, and to see him play there at the weekend, last weekend against Toulouse, and run the show, like it's just unbelievable. He's as fit and as healthy as he's ever been, and I probably have to put Johnny Sexton now as the best player, because the way he's just developed since I retired is just outrageous, just better and better. Is that down to coaching? Is that down to the kind of person he is? Like his mentality is different. Like
what's he like as a person? Like
he's an absolute gentleman.
Oh, is he?
Oh yeah, a top fella. And you boys would see that quite often with different players. You know, as soon as they cross the line, they flick a switch and they turn into not very likable characters. Because you know, you play against Johnny, it's a nightmare. You just want to get up and hit him a slap, and then as soon as
I know the man that could do that.
But yeah, he's an absolute gentleman. Paul O'Connell, his nickname Psycho. But yet, as soon as you get him off the pitch, like he's a complete gent. So plenty of
the best you played against them.
I'd have to go for. I played against Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson, Fabien Pelou. Do you remember him? Played for France, captain France.
Yes.
That's a decent bit of name dropping there.
Isn't it? We get more.
I played for Ulster against Toulouse, maybe a third or fourth game. Fabien Pelou was the second row, and he was maybe his last year, 36, 37 years, maybe older, 38. and we won that game 27-0. And he was playing, for some reason, he was playing number 8, and I was playing number 8, and we were standing at the back of the line out. And the ball came in, and of course the 2 jumpers went up, and they missed it. And it was like, it was hammered in, I can't remember who was the hooker, hammered in, it went over. And it went over both our heads. And as soon as I turned around like that, he just went boom, and clocked me. Like, so I was like, looking for the ball, and as soon as I went like that, he just bang, and I mean, split my face right across, or my nose right across my face. And I don't think I hit the deck, but like it was stumbled, you know, it's like a young kid falling down the hill, you know, just kept on going and going and going. And I ran to the next breakdown, and I was just like, what just happened? That guy, and he just looked at me, and he was 38, but he looked about 68. You know, he's just the weathered skin, and he just looked at me and I was like, I'm not starting a fight with this guy. Like, but there was good players, and then there were hard players.
Dylan Hartley.
Well, Dylan Hartley, I don't have good words to say about that.
You don't really have good words to say about Dylan Hartley.
No,
Why not?
No. Well, he's a liar, first of all. He's a cheat. And if somebody cheats and they hold up their hand and they apologise, I'll shake their hand. That's no
This
problem
was a
at all.
former captain of England now.
Yeah, well, he's a Kiwi at the end of the day. He's born in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So, and I think maybe that's why he was never really, the English fans didn't warm to him. Like, he was never taken in, you know, as an Englishman. And look, we're playing against England, and I had a bottom for ruck, and he decided to bite me, like, so he bit my finger and, you know, broke skin and held on to it and then as soon as he got up, he's let's go, and like I had bite mark in my hand for about 6 months.
That little finger there?
That's that one there, yeah.
It's still bent.
No, that's just because it's not the one. And bite mark in my hand for 6 weeks. He got banned then for that, found guilty for that, but yet he would never pick up the phone and apologise. First game I was playing for Ulster A, or sorry, Ireland A, or Wolfhound it was called way back, and we were getting absolutely slaughtered at Ravenhill. Wednesday night, nobody wanted to be there, 40-50 0 down, or whatever it was. All the superstars playing for England, all our main guys, they were supposed to be arrested. And there was a maul, 79th minute, Dylan Hartley jogs on the pitch 10 minutes previously. We never pick through the ball in, and I'm literally just sitting there in the mall going, right, it's just referee, blow it up here, like, you know, blow it up. And he came straight to the middle and just uppercutted me straight in the face, and he called me a whatever. And I just looked at him and I said, what are you playing at? Like,
wow.
what are you playing at? Wow. And then there was a bit of a scuffle or whatever else, but that's just the type of bloke he is. And I know lads that have played with him at Northampton. Big Roger Wilson played for Ulster, who's a great guy. I asked him what Dylan Hartley's like. He's like, oh, he's a good lad, you know, he's a nice fella, decent fella. So, and then it's come out that he does have this where he just sees red, and he puts it down to like things going on off the pitch. But for me, if God forbid your wife gets taken into hospital because she's got something wrong with her, that's not an excuse to go out and biff somebody on a rugby pitch,
absolutely.
you know, the following night.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I've no respect for the guy, and that's all.
The great thing about rugby I love is the way you react to a referee. Like, I think soccer could certainly take a lesson out of that, and so could Gaelic football.
Yeah.
Is that inbred from day one that you do not argue with the referees?
Because as soon as a penalty's given, you go, ref, you're marched back 10 yards.
Yeah.
Like,
But they can do that in soccer and they can do that in GAA if they wish.
if they wish, yeah.
But they don't do it.
Yeah. To be honest, Jerry, I'm not sure why they don't do it more often. But
I'd love to see it happen.
We'd love to see it happen.
I would love to see it happen.
I've friends that go and watch Gaelic football matches, and they come home and they feel embarrassed because the crowd are harassing the touch judges and the referee, and they're like, oh my God, like, you should have heard what was being said. And then I'm like, seriously? Where at a rugby match, it just doesn't happen. Yeah. So
certainly more respect, doesn't it?
Totally more respect. Yeah. GAA at the moment, Oisín, it's not a great spectacle anymore. It's so defensive. They're passing the ball sideways, they're passing it backways, they're passing it sideways, and every now and then somebody will break through.
I think it's on the turn though. I definitely
think so?
think it's on the turn. I think we went through an awful 3 or 4 years there, but I think definitely this year for me has been much better
Really?
than it was.
Really?
I think there's teams who try to copy what the big teams are doing.
Yeah.
It's just can't
Cheers, pal.
quite do it, and all that involves is just bodies behind the ball, and it's not a great spectacle because you have to break it down. So if I watch an FA Cup game and it's a League 2 team playing a Premier League team, they get players behind the ball and they'll try and hold on and try and there's a little bit of that going on now, but it's Gaelic football. You can't hold on like that.
No.
Eventually, you get beat, and I think teams are learning now that the best way to defend is attack, and I think the best way to get players to buy in is to play an attack instead of football. And I think that has been the problem with getting buy-in from certain players in certain counties. So, but I do think it's on the.
You think it's on the turn?
I think anybody who watched Cavan and Donegal, Cavan were a team coming from Division 4 playing against a team an established Division 1 team. They had tactically everything 100% right, and they lost it because of 2 hay balls within the square, old school, and but like we need more of that.
Yeah.
More teams that can.
Is Derry providing that at the moment?
Derry's the real deal.
Aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you think will they win the Ulster title?
No. I just think Donegal is more seasoned on them. They've had 2 opportunities to watch them. Derry have played in the exact same way both times. Like literally, the way the script has gone in the first 2 Derry games is exactly how they would have played it out in their own heads.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I've been on the pitch very little where everything goes exactly according to plan, and that's more or less how it has gone for them. So.
You said about getting your best players on the pitch. For me, watching Derry, the athletes that they have, like some unbelievable athletes, and if they perform, like I probably disagree. I think Derry are gonna.
I agree with you. But
That's he gets paid the big money for it.
He gets paid the big bucks for it. Yeah. Going to finish on a controversial note. Should we have an all-Ireland soccer team, Gerry?
Talked about it before.
When
Danny Blanchflower was the manager and Johnny Giles was the manager, and it would be great. It would give you more options, but I can't see it happening.
What's the stumbling block?
Stumbling block is FIFA and UEFA, and obviously 2 associations, the FAI and the IFA, and there's a lot of people with a lot of power, and they don't want to let go of that.
So these are boys in suits, like, that don't want to lose their power.
Yeah, but there's when Harry Cavan was our top man, the vice president of FIFA, I remember Harry Cavan came and spoke to us one day on the QT. I think it was in the '82 World Cup, and he was talking to us about the ins and outs of it, and he said basically the African nations are coming more to the fore, and Europe doesn't want to lose their grip, and Europe's obviously UEFA and Europe are stronger than Africa, and they said from a world point of view, if there was more nations from Africa and they became bigger than Europe, it would be horrendous, and they didn't want to lose that. So that's why it's great to have Scotland, Wales, England, Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. There's 5 all from Great Britain, whereas the Africans are all saying there should only be 1 team. And then you lose 4 votes straight away. It's politics, really. It is politics.
It's all politics.
I don't like the politics in sport anyway, but listen, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one because I remember, as far back as Gerry playing 82 and not
Stevie wasn't even born.
You're probably surprised I was born.
Oh, you were well born. I think you scored 3 David.
Well, I remember thinking, should I be supporting Northern Ireland doing? That's the way it was. Yeah. And it's amazing because you're bound to think 38 or 9 years later that you're gonna have some sort of recollection or reconciliation between the north and the south as far as playing the 1 team. These guys here playing the 1 team, and it feels strong. And I just think if we had a 1 island team, if you like, I don't give a I don't care. I don't care what colours we wear. I don't care what flag we're under. I just think that it would be a very powerful thing for a nation like us to have something like that. Because my kids, my kids are at the stage now where I'm trying to explain, well, and I'm not the best academically, but I'm trying to explain history to them. I'm trying to explain why there's a Northern Ireland, why there's a Republic of Ireland. They're asking me who we should be supporting. I'm saying we should be supporting both of them, but they're not buying that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's one team and
one, two teams.
So it's a difficult one, but I'd love to see our thoughts heading towards something like that. You would think that after this length of time that we would, but
I think
Gerry says there's probably too many people with too
I
much
think
skin
that's
in
the
the
problem.
game,
I think we're a long way off it. A long way off it. Sure, Derek Dugan and Jennings did it, didn't they, way back in the 70s?
Well, sure, look at the team that played
They played Brazil.
Yeah, Alan.
But they weren't allowed to use the word Ireland. They played under the name of Bohemians or something, didn't they?
So that was Pat Jennings played.
Pat was in
and
it,
so
yes.
did Alan Hunter, and
Yeah.
we put a really good team out, and drew with the Brazilians.
It's a great
They were
pity.
special.
Guys, thank you so much indeed. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We could go on and on and on and on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I know the audience have. Thanks a million, guys. Gerry Armstrong. Oisín McConville. And of course, the big man himself.